Hey, John, guess what we're going to do today? We're going to talk about the single most important topic in real estate in the U.S., I think, today.
Oh, what's that?
You're supposed to tell me what that is.
Sellers don't have to pay commissions anymore. That's what everyone's saying.
Really?
That's what it says.
I'm not buying that.
No.
Okay.
That's a lie.
Oh, okay. We
That's
got
just-
more.
that's
We
just
got
a
more
lie.
lies.
Yeah, we talk about facts here. So really what's changed is no longer can we put cooperation, which is what the seller pays the buyer's agent, in the MLS.
Okay.
That's the big change.
Okay. So what happens when a seller wants to? So can a seller still offer commission, I guess, to
Absolutely.
a buyer's broker?
Yeah.
Okay, but they just can't put it in the private multiple listing service that we have. Is that correct?
It can't be offered. And actually, if you look at it, it's probably better for the seller because now they don't have to negotiate that with their listing agent up front. They get to negotiate that as each offer comes in.
Okay.
So they can look at each offer in its entirety. It is going to take a lot longer and it's going to make the process a little more cumbersome. But for those who want to do it, they can do it now.
So I've got a little side note here that I'm kind of curious about, and I'll ask you.
Okay.
So I'm a seller, and I have 3 offers that come in. Okay. Now, I've not said what I'm going to pay the buyer's broker for any of those, right? That's part of what gets negotiated when you bring an offer
It'll be
in,
part
right?
of the offer now.
So as a seller, I can negotiate all 3 of those differently, correct?
Correct.
So based on, again, what my net will be or what I can put into my pocket at the end of the day,
Right.
then so nobody has to be given the same commission.
Nope.
So it gives your seller more flexibility.
It does. We had some issues in this country a while ago about discrimination and things like that. And this is one, I think that might be an unintended consequence of this, that there's now not the stability of everybody gets the same.
Yeah.
So if you have a broker that you don't like or ones that you do, maybe they pay less. Not saying that's right, but that can happen now and no one will know.
That's true, but I will throw my little 2 cents worth in here. If you're dealing with, and you've hired a really good listing agent, they're going to make sure that you fall within those guidelines. And if you get out of those guidelines a little bit, they're there to kind of bring you back in and tell you, right?
Yeah.
So, okay, so we know that the commission's not going to be put on our multiple listing service anymore, okay? And we know basically now at this point that the commission for the seller can be negotiated at this
Can
point.
be. It always has been.
Okay. Okay. So let's talk about the history of the commission, because you see a lot of things on the headlines and you see a lot of things that John and I both know are not true.
Price fixing is a word that comes up a lot.
Right.
And I won't speak for other parts of the country because I don't work in those. I work in California.
Right.
And specifically in the Central Valley. That's bullshit. I'm just going to tell you.
Well, just
Is
call
it-
a spade a spade, John.
Could there be somebody out there doing something dirty? Yeah. Just like in
Sure.
any industry, someone could be doing something illegal.
Right.
But that doesn't happen. So I'm going to read you something because this is in our contract.
Okay.
In bold letters on page 1, right at the top. And it's a negotiation that I know we have with every seller.
And this is the listing agreement,
This
correct?
is the listing
Okay.
agreement. Compensation to broker. Note, the amount or rate of real estate commission is not fixed by law. They are set by each broker individually and may be negotiated between seller and broker. And then it goes on, there's a line out there that's blank, and you have to put in the commission that you and the seller agree to.
Right.
Then, out of that total commission, this one happens to be at 5%, we have to decide how much we're going to give to the other side. And this one happens to be 2.5%.
And that's right now.
That's
at this
right
point.
now,
Okay.
and that's always the way it's been.
Right.
So to say that there's price fixing going on is wrong. It's uninformed crap.
Yeah.
It just is.
I agree.
So
Does
that-
it happen? It does. It
Sure.
can happen. But
Sure.
again, John's speaking for where we live and how we conduct our business and what we can tell you. So tell me, John, are there other states that are, I don't want to say conforming to this, but did they have rules change? Like,
Yeah, I grew up in the state of Washington, and about 3 years ago, I happened to listen to a podcast when some of this stuff was going on. It was being talked
Okay.
about. This just didn't happen overnight. This has been going on
right,
for a long
correct.
time. The state of Washington, they used to have, you could offer as little as $1,
Oh my goodness.
and then they changed it to 0.
Oh my.
It had 0 effect,
Oh.
none,
And why do you think that is?
because no one bought their houses.
No one bought their houses. So,
So if you're a seller
right.
and you put your price out there, and part of that price to the buyer also is, okay, if they're not paying the buyer's agent, somebody is. I'm not a nonprofit, not for profit realtor. I do this for a living,
Correct.
right?
Right.
So someone has to pay me, and so the buyer has to pay me. So if the seller's not offering any compensation, the buyer just says, okay, if I have the cash, I'm not going to pay you that price. I'm going to pay you this price because now I'm going to take some of that money and pay my real estate agent.
Right. Right.
So it had no effect.
It had no effect.
No one did it. No one used it. And look, this is a supply and demand business.
Right.
And what's the biggest hurdle that most buyers have to overcome when they buy their house?
It's money down and their closing
Costs. So now we think that we're going to add on top of that paying a buyer's agent? No.
It's not going to happen. So I will even add more to that. So we have young families, people just getting married. Maybe someone's single that just finished college and they've got a great job and they can buy a house. So now they're dealing with, they got to have a down payment. They have to have the closing cost. The interest rates are high. That's a whole nother subject, right? Interest rates are high. Now we're going to add this onto them. So when I go to a listing presentation, this will be part of what I say so that I can prepare my sellers for going into that negotiating.
Because
when
you
we
know
have the
what's
offer.
coming.
Absolutely. So, okay.
So let me what percentage of our business, and I'll say first time home buyer, and I don't really mean first time, but I mean that entry level. What percentage of our business normally is that level?
Goodness, a lot.
It's over
probably know.
60%.
Okay, I knew it was quite a bit.
And those are the people who have the hardest time. Look at what we're doing with down payment assistance.
Right.
Half these people need down payment assistance just to get them in the house.
Yeah, some kind of compensation.
And now we're going
happen.
to try and get them to do another 2.5, whatever the dollar amount is. Not going to happen. So if the sellers aren't going to pay that commission, those buyers are gone.
Well, and what'll happen?
At least until the market turns.
I think what'll happen is that they'll go, well, if you're not going to pay something, I'll find another house. It's
Correct.
just a house.
Correct.
I can make a house look
There's
nice.
always another
There's
house.
always another house. So yeah, I agree with you. So it'll be interesting to see how this all works itself out.
So how about this though? How about cash buyers? They have cash. They could pay their own agent.
Sure.
What do you get with cash offers?
You get cash, but sellers are going to get less money all the way around, right? So,
Right.
yeah, it's in a seller's best interest to offer compensation, okay?
So we both know that the best way to get the most amount of money on a listing is to expose it to the most buyers.
Absolutely.
Because we don't know which buyer is going to give you the highest price or the highest net.
Mm-hmm, that's
And
correct.
you start eliminating groups of buyers, you're not going to make more money, as some people have suggested, Joe Biden. Sorry, that was
We
a
will
polit-
not
that
go
was
down that
was a
road, okay?
political. In certain circumstances, I see that could really hurt sellers. And we haven't even talked about what happens when the market changes a little bit.
So I'll throw in my again. So a couple years ago, when everything was going gangbusters, okay, and everybody was buying everything, the new builds were not offering compensation. At least very few of them were. I won't say all of them, okay?
Correct.
And because they didn't need
didn't
need
think
the
they needed.
buyer's broker or the buyer's agent to come in and bring them a buyer. They could just put something out on the internet and they're going to come in and do it. And honestly, unfortunately, that did kind of happen a little bit. I've had buyers who now say, I wish I would have had somebody there with me. Okay. But what's going to happen is what is happening is now those new builders are offering agents a commission. They're offering us way more, 2 to 2.5%, because now they need us to bring them
The buyer.
good qualified buyers.
Yeah.
And the same thing will happen and our market is shifting a little bit. We still have supply and demand. We still don't have enough listings. But like you said, what's going to happen? What will happen when that? So it may be an adjustment for sellers to begin with. The media is basically saying, oh, you're going to get more money in your pocket. You're going to, don't look at it that way. If we can negotiate something good for you, great. But it needs to be a good offer, a solid qualified buyer. And that's our job to make sure that's coming to you, right?
Yeah, and I guess you got to look at it this way too. This is the largest asset that you're ever going to sell, at least for today. You might sell a more expensive one next year, next 10 years, whatever. But it's the largest asset you own and the largest asset you're going to sell.
Yeah.
So hire a professional real estate agent who can navigate this for you and expose this to the most buyers, qualified buyers, and can get you the highest price.
That's right.
And that savings of I don't even know what, say 1%, $4,000 on a $400,000 house. You don't think multiple offers on a house would get you more than $4,000? It would.
It would.
So you need to hire the right person. And don't. A friend of mine who's a multimillionaire said to me a long time ago. He looked at me and says, "What difference does it make what it costs? What makes a difference is what you net. If you pay more money for something, and it makes you more than the difference in price, you've succeeded." So there's example in business school. Do you buy the $100 printer that costs you $100, but the ink is real expensive and it goes through it like crazy? Or do you buy the $400 printer and then you buy the tubes of ink, and over time that $400 printer is a lot less expensive than the $100 one.
Right. And that's like hiring an agent. Do you hire someone that has honed in on their craft, that can offer value? And I'm not going to get off on the agent thing right now, but for a seller right now, it's really, really important to understand that if you hire the right person, there is value to that. And you will see that value in your bottom line when you close that escrow and that money goes in the bank. So, okay, we've covered about that, John. So what happens if these, and it'll happen, what happens if those sellers decide not to offer any compensation at all? What exactly do you think will?
So when I work with a buyer, I always tell the buyer, think like a seller. When I work with a seller, I say, think like a buyer. So if you're a buyer and you like that house, but now we sit down because we've had a consultation and you know exactly what the rules are and what you've agreed to and what I have agreed to do for you. And let's say we've come to an agreement that I'm going to make 2.5%. Okay.
Okay.
That house over there is not going to offer anything. So we can either put it in the contract or we go find another house. And so what's that house going to do in 6 months when it doesn't sell? Is it going to offer compensation? Maybe compensation and a lower price because now it's been on the market for so long, because now you have more than one issue going on.
Yeah, because the longer your house stays on the market, the less people want to pay for it. They're thinking there's something wrong with it. Why isn't it taking this long? Why has no one else come in? So you're basically cutting your own throat by not offering.
It's no different than the seller thinking about their net. So does the buyer, because now, and this is one of the good things about this, is now you have to sit down with a buyer and go through all this, and go through everything that you do, and how much it's going to cost them. So when they look at a house, now it's just not price and terms and time. Now it's price, terms, times, and commission.
Yeah, and I get that about the buyer, but we need to talk to our sellers. I think part of this is going to make us all communicate, or it should make us communicate more with the sellers. Because one thing I've done for 20 years is when I sit down with someone, I don't care if it's a buyer or seller, but sellers is what we're talking about, I actually sit there and talk a little bit about their finances. And I always tell them, I'm not trying to get personal. That's not what I'm trying to get. But I'm trying to get a better understanding where you're sitting financially, because, if someone doesn't have a lot of money, equity in their home, and they've got to sell it for whatever reason, I'm not going to be the person that charges you a high commission. I'm looking at you like you're an individual and you're a human being, and we're all that way. We all, if we invest wisely, if we handle our finances, but sometimes we're in situations where it's just not right to charge that much money, and I have not done that. And
I think we have one of those right now where we did that.
we absolutely did, because it was in the best interest of our client and their financial need. And this is something I've always thought, working in the business, that we need to care about the people that hire us. We need to remember that it is their house, it is their money, it is their finances. We're just there to help facilitate that and to make it as stress-free as possible.
Right.
So, okay, so we talked about what we bring into the seller's pocket, how this whole commission thing. So let me ask you this. So what happens if you're a seller, because I'm going to just give you examples. You're a seller. I've got a buyer who is a VA buyer, okay? And they love this house, okay? VA buyers have a little different set of rules. John's going to explain that, but I'm not going to offer any commission. I'm saying I'm the seller, and I'm not going to offer any kind of compensation. What's going to happen in that situation?
You will not be able to sell that to a VA buyer. The VA rules state that the VA buyer cannot pay for commission.
That's right.
So so we talked about earlier, you've eliminated a group of buyers. So we have a air station not very far from here.
Right. And
I mean,
we have Lemoore too, right? Like it's
how many of those people can buy houses
right
now if there's no compensation offered? None.
And when we list homes, we also tell people your home needs to appeal to the masses to get offers quickly.
Yep.
Okay. And this is that avenue that if we're not appealing to everybody, that pool is going to shrink and shrink and shrink. Right. So, anything else you need to add to this, you think, John? Or
no, it's just it's not. There are some really good things about this. I think as we talk and look, and all the forms haven't been redone yet. I think there's going to be some unexpected or unintended consequences that we're going to have to work through. But if you're a seller and you're thinking you're not going to pay the buyer side commission, you may have a unique house and that may work for you and whatever. But the majority of people, I think it's be very little change, especially in this market when so many of these people literally cannot afford. If you took 60% of this market out, what do you think would happen?
Yeah.
Because if the low end's not buying, that means the move up's not buying because they're not selling it to the first buyer.
That's right.
And it's a domino effect. And that'll shut the market down completely. So I think there'll be very little change, honestly. Fun fact, do you happen to know what the average nationwide now, what the average commission was in 2023?
I believe 5.1 something.
5.19.
There you go. See? So, I mean, how can that be fixed at 5.19? I mean, come on. That's variable all the way across the board, right? So, I'm going to conclude, if we're kind of I think we've hit most of the bullet points. I actually have a positive outlook on this.
I do too.
There's been a lot of negative. We want to come on here and share with you that we think this is a positive. It'll weed out people that probably shouldn't be in our industry, unfortunately. Or maybe that's fortunately, I don't know, whichever way. And I'm always a firm believer of change is good. I never look at change like it's a bad thing, but I think it's how we adapt to that change is going to make the biggest difference. So it's how we as agents adapt. It's going to be how you as sellers adapt. We're all going to have to get creative in this, and it's not going to be the little cookie cutter. Do you want to add anything else to that? I mean, we talked about communication, negotiation.
Would love to see your comments or questions because there is a ton of misinformation. Like I said, some very prominent people have come out and made some statements that are just foolish.
Yeah, it's sad for you guys to have to listen to that. Yeah. And we're not. Trust me, we are not attorneys. We are not on that legal team or anything. We're two. I want to say we're valued realtors here in this community.
Yeah, we value each other.
We value each other. Okay. Yeah. But we want you to hear from people who are actually in the field. Okay.
Full time.
All the time. Trust me.
Yeah.
And we want you to know that we have a positive take on this, that we think this is going to spin in everybody's direction the right way. It is going to be transparent. There's going to be more communication. Yep. And honestly, I'm okay with that. Are you okay with that?
Yeah, we're going to have a few bumps in the road on how to do it. But bottom line is people need to sell houses and people need to buy houses, and we are the ones that facilitate that,
That's
that
right.
connection.
So my last thing I'm going to say is, how can that be a bad thing?
It can't. So we'd love to see your comments or questions. And as always, like and subscribe and share this with someone who think might get some benefit from it. And we'll see you next time.